Okay, so I want to explain because I get a lot of questions about documentation and how to document. And this is something that I teach in my coaching program, but I want to give a specific example to maybe help people understand how important it is to really zone in on your documentation. It literally is the only thing standing between you and your parenting rights and your parenting time. So what a narcissist will do is they will create little ways to manipulate, lie, use false allegations, but they will come up with ways that you won't even understand because you don't think that way. So I'll give you a specific example. Let's just say that your parenting order, your core order says that if there's anything medical, health, and you have 50-50 legal decision making, that you have to contact the other parent if there's an emergency or a doctor's appointment, and you have to include them. You have to say, hey, our child has a doctor's appointment next week. It's going to be at this time at this doctor's office. And you have to be able to make sure that you are maintaining what the court order is saying. A lot of people say, well, why should I have to do it when they're not doing it with me? Sometimes your documentation is more about protecting you against the narcissist than it is about really using anything against the narcissist, because you can't, when I give you a specific example, it's all going to make sense. So let's just say there's a medical emergency with your child and you have to rush them to the emergency room. And unfortunately, a lot of people do what, especially the healthy parent, they do what any healthy parent's going to do. They're going to take care of the situation. They're going to get their child to the emergency room. They're going to get them admitted. They're going to get them into the doctor. They're going to have them administer the medication. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I need to contact the other parent because that's part of your court order. Well, at that point, it's already too late. Like, you have already kind of created a problem when it comes to family court, because you're supposed to include them the second something happens, but your focus is on the child. This is what is so messed up about family court, is they can take your parenting rights because you make these type of little mistakes. So what, in this instance, what you would need to do immediately is, like, when you're at the hospital, the second you get there and you're admitted there, you need to either email, or if you have one of the court-ordered apps like OFW, you OFW them and you say, hey, there was an emergency. This is a hospital we're at, and it's located at this, location. And you've done your job at that point. You've let them know that there was an emergency. That's the hospital at, and they're welcome to come and show up at any point. If they don't show up, that's on them. But let's just say you called them because you're like, hey, it's part of your court order. You need to let them know right away. Hey, I am headed to the hospital. There was an emergency. Our son fell, cracked his tooth. I've got to get him in. Whatever. It doesn't matter. So you get in. So you've called them, right? So what can happen in these two scenarios? If you've emailed them, you have written documentation that you have notified them and let them know. So they can never go back and say, she took my son to the hospital and I didn't know about it, and they didn't include me, and I didn't agree with the medication, and I didn't want this to happen, and that and the other, and she shouldn't have legal decision making because she can't even include me. And they will consider taking away legal decision making because you went ahead and did what a healthy parent does, and you just took care of the situation, not thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to get in trouble because I didn't let the other parent know right away. You're not thinking of that because that's not how your brain thinks, because you just want to focus on the child. But when it comes to family court, they need to see that you are co-parenting in order for you to have legal decision rights when it comes to most cases that you guys share legal decision rights. So what can happen is, if you called and you don't have written documentation that you contacted the other parent, at the very least, what you need to do in that situation is screenshot the fact that you called the other parent. You have documentation that on that date there was a phone call made and it lasted 30 seconds if you left a voicemail, 2 minutes and 50 seconds if you talked to them and let them know, whatever it is. But if you don't screenshot that and all you did was call them and said, hey, I'm headed to the hospital, this happened, and this is the location we're going to be at, and you didn't have any documentation that you did that, what a narcissist will do, okay, this is what is so evil and calculated and honestly mind-blowing about them, is they will literally pretend that you didn't call them. And if you don't take that screenshot and make sure that you provide that to the judge or your attorney to prove that you notified the other parent on that date, and here's the phone call, at the very least you have a screenshot that you did the phone call, the narcissist will lie and say, she never called me, I didn't know about it, and they will purposely not show up to the hospital, because obviously if they showed up, that would prove that you had notified them. So what they will do is they will pretend that you did not call them because they know that you didn't give written documentation, and they're hoping that you did not take a screenshot or have any documentation that proves that you had called them. And if they have enough examples of you doing things like taking care of the medical and health care and you're not notifying the other parent, they can say that they want your parenting and legal rights taken away, and the judge will consider it, because what it shows is that you are unilaterally making decisions for the child, and that is not what is in your court order. Your court order states that you need to let the other parent know if there's a medical emergency or a medical, or health care, anything. So this is what is so messed up, because they know you called them and let them know, but they're going to pray you have no documentation that proves that you had called and let them know. So this is where you start to beat the narcissist when it comes to family court. If you did call them, at the very least, you take a screenshot and you file it away in whatever way you want to file it. I don't care if you have a folder on your phone that says exactly what the event was on this date. Here's your screenshot that you called the other parent. And if they ever try to lie in court, this is what is so messed up, is they will lie in court, and what you constantly have to be able to do is have documentation to shut down the lie. This is how you start to show the courts that there is a pattern of this person's character lying in court, and here, I have proof that I called them on this date. Here's also the hospital records of that date when we showed up. So these two things would show and prove that I did call them. But if you don't have this documentation and you didn't give them a written notification, now they can try to say you never called them, you're unilaterally making decisions, you're going against the court order, and a judge will consider taking away somebody's rights based off of this. So this is something that I coach and teach people. This is just an example of how on top of your documentation you need to start to get when you're dealing with a narcissist. Because if you're dealing with a normal parent, they're going to answer the phone and they're going to show up if they can show up to the hospital, or they're just going to ask you, hey, just please let me know, I can't be there right now, I'm at work or whatever. And then you guys talk about it and you work it out. But with a narcissist, they will use any scenario they can to try to pin you as somebody you're not, to try to make it seem like you are doing things that you are not. You're the healthy parent taking care of the child, getting the child to the hospital, and just getting the child taken care of. But unfortunately, if you are in a high conflict custody battle with a narcissist, you have to think about these things. You have to think about the fact that they are going to try to use whatever they can. And if you called them on the phone and they think, oh, she doesn't have documentation to prove that we had a verbal conversation, so I'm going to use this scenario to show that she is purposely not including me on serious things like this, and she needs to have her legal decision rights taken away. The reason they want your legal decision rights taken away is because they want full control of everything. It's not because they genuinely want to make the right decisions for the well-being of your children. This is what is so sick about this whole situation. So this is why I talk about why your documentation needs to be so on point that you leave no room for the judge to understand who is the problematic parent. So this is just a small example that I want to give you, that you need to understand how important your documentation is. So this is something that I have in my programs that I teach. that you just need to be on top of. So join bloomfromwithin.com if you need help. That is my website.